Common Filth Radio, episode 25. I got a tweet here from Greg from 108. So apparently corporate America thinks the NFL and Jezebel have the same core audience. I talked about this a few weeks ago, and I'll tie it in a little bit later after this. I want you to give me money. commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com. Now you can support me. If you have Amazon.com purchases, if you're in America, click on that affiliate link below. Anyway, yeah, if you were among the 110 million Americans, maybe more, closer to 120, I think. Anyway, that was the U.S. audience for the Super Bowl. To put that number into context, a very successful regular season game in the NFL, a primetime game, it gets about 20 million, 25 million between those two numbers, and that is a very good rating. So in other words, an overwhelming percentage of the TV audience couldn't really give less of a shit if they tried about what they're actually seeing, which is reflected in the fact that most people following the Super Bowl, all they talk about is really the commercials and not the game itself. And what were those commercials? Well, you had Sarah Silverman spreading her odious filth, a grown man crying after he's dropping his daughter off at the airport, presumably to send her off to boot camp, judging by the backpack she had. You had, what else? Oh yeah, that like a girl bullshit. It's like, oh, girls are vulnerable during puberty and you shouldn't make them any more vulnerable. Implying that all of us aren't vulnerable during puberty. But that one annoyed me the most because the insult like a girl is never directed at girls. It's always directed at boys because there's something inherently shameful in being something that you're not. There are some other shitty commercials too, like that domestic abuse one, which I was not in the room to see, but I'm sure it was quite bullshit. The point here is that sports as a whole are just another part of what the media perpetuates. And what the media perpetuates is essentially a mix of what they want you to believe and what people want to see. So with respect to the Super Bowl audience, a lot of them do read Jezebel, XO Jane, feministing, everyday feminism, and so on. So really the only thing that they can get over on the audience, that the aspects of the audience that aren't them, that are either apathetic or hostile to their ideas, is through commercials. Because that's what people who go to university do nowadays. They get communications degrees or film degrees and they go make commercials using content that they learned in their boilerplate shit classes. Michael Savage brought up a great point today regarding the Super Bowl and the NFL and football at large, in that women cannot play football. I mean, they can with other women, but they can't compete against men. They are simply physically inferior. This is a basic biological reality. And don't give me that shit about how some 5th grade girls team beat a boys' 5th grade team in basketball. Play that game in 10 years, see how it turns out. In other words, football, despite its promotion of racial cuckoldry, is really the only place where you can see men being men on a consistent basis and not being punished for it. And they can't stand it because it undermines every premise they've ever been taught. K through 12, freshman year of college through senior year of college, and on to grad school if they get that far. The premise of we all equal. No one's better than anybody else, unless society makes it. See, right there. Even if society makes it, there are people clever enough to manipulate others into believing that they're inferior. So even within their own premises, it's stupid if you take a closer look at it. Which is why every liberal argument seems to devolve into, well, they exist, therefore they're just as good as you, and they deserve free shit. That's what happens when you send your kids to college and these public schools and you don't censor what is being taught to them by these teachers. And I guess you can say this is why men are ultimately responsible for all this rot that's happening. Not because they have actively engaged in it themselves, although many do, but just the fact that they don't do anything about it. They don't storm into offices, throw shit around, and yell at people and scare the shit out of people, bring down the wrath of God upon them. They just do nothing because they're comfortable. Hell, they don't even damage their own properties so that they make less in property taxes. Or they have to pay less in property taxes. The state makes less in property taxes. Most men would rather be comfortable rather than fighting back, at least on a very minimal level, against the elements which ruin the civilization that their ancestors built. But this is something I've talked about on numerous occasions. But the target audience, corporate America knows what it's doing when it's deciding its target audience. Women are better consumers than men. Therefore, you target all these overeducated women who think that they're so smart because they got an A in their 101 classes. They believe what I believe. I'm gonna buy from them. Obama 2016. But that's all I have to say about that. It's all a dog and pony show. It's all designed to sell stupid crap to women with disposable income because they would rather have an abortion than sacrifice their career to some extent. Their very important career as a receptionist. So anyway, there's a theory that I don't believe, that in order to be a good writer, you have to read a lot. In order to be a good filmmaker, you have to watch a lot of films. In order to do anything, you have to observe people doing it, which I think is bullshit. The best way to become a good writer is to write. The best way to become a good filmmaker is just to make movies. So I think it's bullshit advice and dangerous advice, but I don't think that it should be discarded entirely if you already have a healthy approach to something. I think that the best way to do something is to actually do it and practice it, like I do this podcast. I never did podcasts before, aside from some one-off shit when I was a teenager with some friends, but that's long gone. I don't remember any of it. So despite the fact that I've had a lot of practice doing this and I basically know what I'm doing at this point, I still do like to listen to other podcasts just to get ideas, see what I'm doing right, see what I'm doing wrong, compare, contrast. And one of them that I subscribe to is the This American Life podcast, which, you know, they put on a good show despite their lefty bent. It doesn't reveal itself too often, so it's tolerable. But this week I had to turn it off within the first 2 minutes. It started out innocently enough, Ira Glass talking about some comment thread and how some people in the comments were arguing over something very simple and obvious. And then he got into the introduction to Act 1, where he was talking about how, trolls, they spread hate and abuse. And women, they get the worst abuse. And here's a writer from Jezebel who's going to tell us about it. Here's the story. So at that point, I turned it off and looked through what else I had. It was going to be a long car ride, so I had just subscribed to Mike Cernovich's podcast, if that's how you say his name, and he had some idiot on there who barely spoke English talking about how great psychedelics were, and I'm just like, God fucking damn it. We really do live in a world of shit. Fuck off, I don't want to hear you talking with your druggy friends about how seeing shit that isn't really there is so great and it really helps you with your thinking. It's also fucking predictable. I'm oppressed. Some guy said something mean online about me, and I got my revenge though, and drugs are great. They really open up your mind, man. And I don't have 90 minutes of patience to listen to the same shit over and over again. I don't have 90 minutes of patience to listen to your rationalizations for your idiotic decisions. It's like I could handle predictability in these free podcasts that I download if I didn't have to deal with it on a daily basis. People who are like, I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative. It's like, I don't give a shit about politics, really. Very little of what I talk about is political. Do you notice that? Do you notice that I very rarely talk about Barack Obama and, who's going to be the Republican nominee? Because really, I don't give a shit. Politics is going to do what politics is going to do regardless of my input. But somebody who has political beliefs that they actually share, somebody that puts their political beliefs into these very cozy categories, you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at that. And what I hear when I hear, I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative, all I hear is, I'm a greedy fuck that likes anal sex. That's all I hear. But do like the Gen Xers do. Who cares? Who cares about anything? It all sucks. Which is true to some extent, but that'll only get you so far. That attitude got us where we are today with millennials who hitch their wagon to the stupidest shit imaginable, but I'm repeating myself. I apologize for my spicy attitude this week, but I'm on very little sleep right now. Well, not very little, but I woke up at a very early hour and it is now very late, and I spent the whole day writing episodes for Tumblristas so that I have a backlog. I still have to record them, but they're all written, they're all done. I finished episode 5 in the morning, and I got all the way to episode 8. So I'm going to record episode 5 in the next couple of days here in time for Thursday. Most of the screenshots that I took actually were too good to pass up, but they could not be included in anything that would be allowed on YouTube. So later on, once I get enough of a backlog with those, I will start writing for them and release them to Bandcamp. And Bandcamp lets me upload bonus items in the download, so I could put videos in the along with the audio files. So once I get like 15 to 20 minutes worth of raw episodes, so to speak, I will put that up. But I don't know. I don't have a timetable for it. So nothing concrete right now on that front, other than the fact that they will be made, they will be released. I just don't know when at this point. Ideally, I would like to have them done by the end of the month, but we'll see. It is, after all, the shortest month of the year. Last week was pretty fun in that I was reading the emails blind, and I do not have that advantage this week because I did preview some of the emails. Not all of them. I think I have 1 or 2 more that I did not look, but I did not read the Ask FM questions if there are any, so why don't we start with those? If you would like to submit a question for me to answer next week, go to ask.fm/commonfilth. And I only have one this week from Ask FM, so there we go. CF, what do you think about people unironically having waifus? Is dedication to 2D a detriment to society, or is it a form of natural selection? I'm not sure how natural selection plays into this, because it's not as if that there's a gene that activates a desire towards 2D waifus or fantasy women. I think that something like that kind of attraction is enabled by the environment. And I know it plays into the blank slate tabula rasa bullshit, but we haven't had quote-unquote 2D waifus for most of human history. So I don't think that it would be good for society at all if people adopted this behavior towards anime characters on a massive scale. It seems to be a fringe thing now, and it's amplified because these people, all they do is post spam those with 2D waifus on, whatever social media platform they use. So it just seems more prominent than it really is, because those who have converted to 2D waifuism are generally the loudest about it because they want to be accepted or something. But in all, I am against it because escapism is not the solution. Yeah, I get it. The quality of women available to the average person nowadays is pretty fucking low, but you gotta confront reality. You gotta work to either adapt or bend the world to your will. Men gotta reach out and take it. Don't make any apologies. I make one fucking reference to a hentai game and I get all these fucking weebs in my comment section. This is boring. What about Honey Pop? I don't know, go watch some fucking YouTube videos about it. I'm sure there are a ton of them. Just wait until you realize that conversations are a lot harder than having 3 options at your disposal. So that concludes the only Ask FM question we had. So let's get into the inbox here. I have 2 bolded messages, and one is from Shane that is titled Westboro Baptist Church. So we will read this for the first time together. Click. Hey CF, Shane here. Due to some circumstances with moving back to Alaska, I have had to stay with my grandparents while my father drives back. He sent us up early. My grandparents are conservative Christians, and my grandmother indulges in long binges of Glenn Beck and other conservative show hosts. Due to their views, we do not get along. Her view of Christianity is one of tolerance and love, one that I do not agree with. I believe that we must cast out Muslims and all other enemies to us and Christ, and I do not trust the chosen. She believes that we must love Muslims and hate what they do, and constantly parents love and tolerance, not realizing those people do not love and tolerate us. Worst of all, she thinks Westboro is an evil group, not true Christians. How do I convince her that her form of Christianity is weak-willed and cowardly? We are in a complete agreement, you and me, but I don't think that you should convince them, and I think that would be the only place where we disagree. Women have a sensitivity to harm and care, and that is usually reflected in whatever worldview they adopt. So, of course, that the women amongst us are against people that aggressively assert their will and assert their beliefs and do not apologize for what they believe. Think about how many times you were told by some female authority figure to be nice, even though you were perfectly righteous in your anger. It's just how they're wired. You can't do anything about it, and don't hold it against them. They really cannot help it, and we want to hold it against them because they do have as much power as we do. So it's frustrating, I know, but just try to relax, take a deep breath, and realize, say, forgive them, Lord, they know not what they've done. If anything, I'd talk to your grandpa, and don't try to convince him of anything, because he's probably just going to be like, fuck off, kid. Just ask him questions, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? You'll probably have some more interesting things to say than just, love and tolerance. And if your grandpa believes that stuff, well, just use the Socratic method, I think, where you just ask questions and they slowly come to the realization that they don't have a point to make. And if they do have a point to make, they will probably come to the realization that it's very flimsy and very unrealistic. But don't be so strident, don't be so dogmatic, and just be cool about it. Play it cool, and play it pleasantly, because unfortunately, what is said is secondary to how it is said. It's just how we're wired. I don't know why, and I'm not interested in trying to change that. So I'm not going to read this email live because I'd prefer to keep this anonymous by at the request of the sender, but the sender did say that they wrote me a little script for so that I could be able to upload the show to podcasts, which is great work. You're a greater talent than I am based on what you're telling me, and I'll definitely check the Facebook message that you sent if there's anything else. But I should get back to you after I upload this show. So this was sent by somebody with a name, but I will not share that name. But the email says, after the stuff about the RSS feed stuff, I'm anonymously informing you that I do computer janitor work at a nonprofit that provides residential treatment for children who need mental counseling and whatever. Coming up sometime in the near future, we're going to have new regulations put on our staff that require us to ask all inbound patients how they identify. In addition, that requires us to cater to them differently based on how they feel. According to the director, this is from a federal act that's supposed to help reduce rapes. Funnily enough, some of the staff in attendance to this meeting started laughing when he started going into details after obviously being confused when he initially mentioned gender identity. Psychology is generally at the forefront with this type of insanity, but it's hard to come to terms with the fact that an internet nightmare is becoming reality. Talk about it, don't talk about it, I don't really care either way. Just don't mention my name. If you do, I'd really prefer not to. I'd be identified by some SJW cunt listening into your show and foaming at the mouth about it and then starting a doxing warpath. Keep doing God's work. Yeah, I wouldn't want that for you either. If you tell me to answer things anonymously, just in general to anybody listening to this, I will. The mistake a lot of people who believe close to the same stuff that we believe is that they dismiss this social justice, human experimentation nonsense as something that just exists on the internet and something that we don't have to encounter in real life. Well, here you are in real life doing something and you are encountering it. And you're not encountering it in front of a computer screen. This increasingly dominant worldview is informed by stuff that college educated people internalize. And they internalize it because they're rewarded for it. They have an incentive. So they learn all this stuff in college and think they're real counter-revolutionary, or not counter-revolution, but revolutionary, and they're going to blow these people's minds and they're going to really change the way people think. And now it's having real-life consequences. Because these people have this classroom mindset that, oh, I'm going to show you something you've never seen before. It's like maybe 50% of people don't move beyond how they were in high school. Well, the other half, they don't move beyond how they are in college. Because they think that's the end-all be-all. They think that's the height of culture. That there is nothing else out there. That there are no ideas that could possibly disagree with their own that aren't backwards and bigoted and uneducated. So to anybody listening to this, my listener who sent me this email is encountering this stuff in real life. And it's going to have real life consequences at the place of his employment. I wish I had the money to hire you away from those people so I could pay you to do my computer janitor work, because that would be pretty cool, but Common Filth Enterprises is not yet some top flight corporation where I can pay people a good salary. God willing, someday we will get to that point. So thank you for that bit of information there, and try to keep your sanity, because I most likely could not. This one is from Han, a regular writer to the show. Always appreciate these messages. A couple of months back, I was talking to a girl around the same age as I, and something really stood out to me about her, which led to me cutting all contact with her toxic mentality. She talked about how she plans to go to college or get a higher education, which isn't anything surprising, but here's the kicker. She basically had a boyfriend, but told me that she was still open to casual sex and sleeping with people until she got her career going and settling down with her boyfriend, who lived about 4 states away from her. She went on to talk about her boyfriend is so horny and how he has to masturbate like 6 times a day. But what also got me was that she had been in numerous intimate relationships with guys, and how she was proud of her laid-back approach of dating and proud of her failed relationships, even idealizing them to a point. What do you believe creates such terrible people? Do you believe there is anything to save someone who is on a path to self-destruction like her? I cannot be the only one disgusted with this whole casual sex thing and how women think they will be mother/wife material when the time arises. What creates these terrible people are incentives. She can get away with using her youth to have fun, and when she's done having her fun, usually by the time the first wrinkle shows up on her face, and she decides, oh, I need to settle down. I want kids now. And by the time this happens, she'll meet some guy who is starved for female attention, and she'll be able to seek it out. Probably some guy that focused on, being what society believes to be a good man, doing everything for the right reasons, but not getting rewarded for it. Basically a sexless beta who's a corporate automaton. I know I used that term last week, but I like it. This girl will be able to find some guy so desperate that he's willing to put a ring on it. He's willing to accept a sloppy eighth for basically either eternity or half of his comfortable salary. As long as there are these stupid, pathetic men out there that would rather spend these resources on unworthy women, women like this will exist. Alpha fucks, beta bucks is only a viable strategy if there are betas willing to give away their bucks. And a beta, even if he is one by nature and can't improve himself to what we perceive to be an alpha is basically somebody that doesn't take shit from women. Or, if you want to define it in a more traditional way, somebody that is capable of leading large groups of men. Whatever your definition is, the beta, all he needs to do is recite this in his head. No hymen, no diamond. Those 4 words shall set him free from any loneliness he might feel. Because he will realize that being alone or being lonely, however you want to say it, I think being alone and loneliness are different things. Because if being alone means not being taken advantage of by someone who realizes that their looks are on the decline and less men are paying attention to them, being alone no longer seems that bad. But until there is a mass awakening amongst men that women aren't the angels they presented themselves to be some time ago, we will have these girls who can get away with this. That's what manning up really is. It's not something some idiot tells you on a public service announcement. Manning up is not taking shit. And taking up some used goods and paying for that, paying for its wedding, paying for its ring, that's shit that nobody should put up with. But it's shit that a lot of people, an alarming number of men, are perfectly happy to bury their face in and smear it all over their chest and say, look, this is a great life decision. Sorry, squeaky chair, I'm moving a bit here. But a lot of people like to make this argument. This is kind of related to this question, but a lot of people like to make this argument, well, why are you so concerned about the sanctity of marriage when divorce is allowed? Well, there are certain intellectually consistent sects out there of Christianity that do criticize divorce. That say, no, you fucked up, you live with your decision. Divorce is adultery. Adultery is a sin. And they are absolutely right, but again, too many people are content to marry adulterers. Far too many. But according to whoever, that's not right for you to judge them. They made a mistake. Who are you to judge? Well, I can judge if I didn't make the same fucking mistake. That's what people don't get. The whole, oh, don't judge lest ye be judged. All they're saying is, do not judge people by standards that you cannot meet. So if I'm judging somebody for being divorced, you know what? I'm perfectly fucking at liberty to do that. I'm perfectly within my jurisdiction to do that. Because I've never been divorced. Fuck you. I didn't make that mistake. So I'm going to call it out as it is. It's a fucking mistake. See, these people who are like, don't judge, they got me yelling. And now the 6% female audience that I have, I think that's what it was last I checked, have turned it off because they don't like yelling. But yeah, that's absolutely fucking disgusting, and you were absolutely right to cut off all contact with this person because there is no room in anybody's life for people like that. They will bring you down at some point in ways you cannot possibly foresee, which is why it's better to just exercise the nuclear option. This is something I was going to talk about at the beginning of the show, and normally I answer all the questions at once, but change up the format a little bit. Why not? This is from the New York Post. Birth certificates ask parents if woman giving birth is female. No, that's not a typo. A city health department form for new parents requesting birth certificates asks a woman giving birth if she's male or female, along with routine questions: mother's maiden name, mother's legal name, mother's social security number. It's a gender question that has raised a few eyebrows, and just in case the inquiry is not clear, the birth certificate request provides a convenient checkbox and asks the questions in capital letters. What is your date of birth, current age, and sex? The form asks in the section clearly marked mother/parent, in parentheses, woman giving birth. Now, I'm not going to comment on this. I'm simply going to read other headlines, because why not? This will give you an idea of the kind of world we find ourselves in. Where are you? Oh, here we go. Feds. Transgender illegals, illegal aliens, guaranteed right to hormone therapy in detention. Where in the Constitution does it say that? Oh, it's an equal protection, right? Well, yeah, sure. HBO orders drag queen pilot. And Inside Edition hires nation's first trans TV reporter. There is really nothing I can say. There is not one thing that I can say that I haven't already said, but I think it speaks for itself. I apologize for the detour. We have a question from Shay. I'm sure you'd like to hear me do more impressions, but I'm not in the mood anymore. But we'll perk back up for Shay. I know you touched on this, but I'd love to hear what you think on the anti-vaxxers as well as the measles outbreak going on at Disneyland right now. And when this was sent, it was only at Disneyland, I think, but now it has spread significantly, and the president's like, be careful, you might get it. Which, thanks. You're the fucking reason why we have it, you dumbass. Fuck you, Obama, dumb motherfucker. Fuck you, Seth Rogen, dumb motherfucker. What's next? Fuck you, John Cena, dumb motherfucker. I'm referring to these Facebook pages that are really funny, but um, yeah, he's saying, "Oh, be careful," and oh, it's those anti-vaccination people when he added almost 6 million foreign workers to the economy, many of whom brought over the measles virus because their kids are filthy and lack first world medical standards. But as for what I think of the anti-vaccine people, obviously I think that they're getting the unfair blame for the measles outbreak. But just in general, I don't think about them much. They seem to be a pretty insignificant portion of the population. I'm not a medical expert. I am woefully underread on the subject, but um, I understand some people's concerns, like with flu shots. I don't know if that's the same thing as a vaccine, but I think flu shots are bullshit and nobody should get them. But for more serious ailments, should really do your research on things because I'm a person that does not use antiperspirant. I do use deodorant. Don't get me wrong, but I don't like the idea of aluminum being absorbed into my bloodstream. And maybe they put more disturbing shit into vaccines than that. I'm not sure about it, but I don't think that you should throw out the book one way or another on it. And I know that's a boring, moderate answer, but you know what? I think that's it. Because I don't think that concerns come from nowhere. I think that concerns that people have with vaccines, if I looked into it, are pretty legitimate. The only person I really ever met that was very skeptical of vaccines was actually a biology professor that I had in college. Maybe that bit of experience means something, maybe it doesn't, I'm not entirely sure, but there you go. So I have a couple of questions left in the YouTube comments, and I don't recommend that you do that, but I caught these. So this one's from Cameron. That was left on Commonwealth Radio episode 21. Okay. If you feel that esports don't contribute anything to society, which I agree with you, they do not, how do you feel about professional team sports, specifically ones like American football? On one hand, those who participate usually have better, healthier physical well-being than those who don't. But do you think they should be paid as much as they do for what is merely entertainment with no real value? If it means anything to you, I find it boring to watch sports, so much prefer to play them, just like I find it boring to watch others play video games. Jared Taylor of American Renaissance, I think that's his name, posted a really good article on some website. I don't know, maybe I'll find the link, maybe I won't, but it was called Why I Hate the Super Bowl. And it basically says what you're saying is in that nothing is produced, nothing in the real world is affected by it, by the outcome of a game. So, yeah, nothing is produced, but it does produce sentiment, feelings towards this game. And people are willing to pay a lot of money to watch these people play. These people to whom they have some sort of attachment. So it doesn't really bother me beyond the fact that people care about this so deeply that these athletes make a lot of money, probably way more than they should. Yeah, technically nothing is produced. There's no lines of code being written. There are no bars of steel being melted, no gold being repurposed to make electronics. But perception, to some extent, is reality. And the perception that people have of athletes is, well, this is something I should be paying for. This is something I'm willing to look at. Therefore, there's a lot of money to be made there. And just like the esports thing, which I don't remember what I said about it completely, but I don't really care that people pay money to watch other people play video games. I mean, yes, it is indicative of some decadence, but I think there are far worse things about society than that. Thank you for the question. This one comes from Garrett, also from the YouTube comments. I think this one came from episode 23. I don't know, the thumbnail's really small. Anyway, from Garrett, I was wondering what your thoughts are on spirituality. The worst thing, well, maybe not the worst thing, but something that really annoys me is when some girls are like, I'm spiritual but not religious. If spirituality is nothing more than a vehicle for women to appear more deep without being held to any sort of responsibility, then no, fuck spirituality. It is horrible. So beyond the hippie new age nonsense that spirituality suggests, I don't really know much about it. I know religion. I don't what the fuck is spirituality? Just say that you don't believe in God, but you want to seem more interesting and you want to seem more well-rounded, despite the fact that you're shallow and horrible. Somebody's gonna have to help me out in the comments here because I don't feel like explaining myself any further because I'm concerned about what the regular person is doing and what kind of pressures are they applying to certain concepts, certain words, certain ideas. All that I can really say about it definitively is that if people were so concerned with being spiritual, they wouldn't define themselves by worldly bullshit. They wouldn't define themselves by hedonistic pursuits. Alright, we'll go back to email for a little bit. Actually, I think this is the last one, and we'll wrap it up. This brings me to... Okay. Alright, that'll do it for the YouTube comments. And we got one more email question, I think. This one's from John. How do you feel about whites who use cannabis for recreation? We all know from American History X that weed is for... censored. Don't use the illegal words, illegal according to Google. Not you specifically. You mean well, I know, but... just I don't want to seem like a cat lady after school special kind of thing. Anyway, but at the same time, I don't see it as being much different from using alcohol for recreation. They're both degenerate and harmful to the body, but humans are weak and cave into that sort of thing easily. In the past, you've commented that you are tolerant of alcohol in moderation as a social lubricant, but I'd like you to elaborate on casual alcohol and marijuana use. I don't know if you guys listened to Sam Hyde's Q&A when he did that How I Survived High School thing, but he had some really good things to say about weed, and it'd basically be my answer for this question. He basically said that even if you do use it casually, it becomes habitual, and you like how it makes you feel numb to everything, and eventually you start self-medicating with it, and it takes away years from your life. And from my experiences, observing people, having roommates that did this kind of shit, this is absolutely the case. It's no way to go. It is absolutely no way to go. And it's not like alcohol is any better, you're right. But the thing is, alcohol in moderation does lead to, it makes socialization easier. Now, there's a very fine line between, having one drink and having a ton. This is what people don't understand. These very either asocial or antisocial times we live in, people want to drink to get completely fucked up, and what fun is there in that? The fun is being able to interact with people without pretension when you have, just enough whiskey in you or just enough beer in you. People have considered alcohol as the end in and of itself rather than a means to encourage social interaction, easy social interaction. And this is why you're having lots of people who are like, oh, I was raped when I was blackout drunk in public. Yeah, that's a great fucking idea. I can't remember right now who brought this up, but it was an excellent point. People who get behind the wheel, drive drunk, they aren't really in control of themselves, That's why you give the keys to somebody else before you get blackout drunk in public, which is, I'm against that. Don't get me wrong, but, where is I going with this? Right. If you're getting really drunk and you get behind that wheel, you're really not in control. You're not of a sound mind. Yet if you get busted for DUI, you're treated as if you did this as a premeditated thing, as if you intended to cause harm, as if, you intended to destroy somebody or somebody's property. If you get a DUI, your life's pretty fucked over. The law is not consistent in this respect. The law says, you don't have agency, but we're going to punish the fuck out of you. But if you are a woman and you get drunk and you're like, yes, fuck me, please fuck me. Oh man, I'm so horny. You have just as little agency there, but the guy who's like, all right, cool, whatever, he's the one that gets fucked over. Even though you're basically making the same decision. So you know what my conclusion is? People should not be allowed to make their own decisions. This is why I don't consider myself a libertarian or whatever. Because people are animals, and they need to be treated as such. They cannot make their own decisions. And when they do make their own decisions, they're usually horrible ones. You know what? Yeah, fuck it. Ban everything. Ban everything. Make everybody adhere to a schedule, a curfew. Fuck it. People already do that anyway. They already do that. They're in a self-imposed exile in their own homes because iPads, because of Netflix. I don't know if this is the sleep deprivation talking or not, but man, I mean, it would be better than the anarcho-tyranny we have now where, illegal aliens can get free tea treatments from the feds on the taxpayer dime. Why can't I get free testosterone, huh? My body actually uses it and needs it. It's what I use to get shit done and not be some passive little bitch. Which is really what they want, isn't it? They just want some passive little bitch that's like, oh, okay, I'll buy that. Because it's good for the bottom line. If there's somebody that is strong enough in them of themselves to put up a resistance to whatever, whatever they find bad or distasteful or whatever, then there's no money being made. It's like the man in the suit saying, no, you need to buy the product. And I say, fuck you. I'm not going to buy your product because I could beat you up. So I'm tired because I'm starting to LARP. And we are definitely not LARPers here at Common Filth. We're not going to fall into the trap that we discussed with 2D waifus of using that as a means of escape, using political ideas as a means of escape, using philosophy as a means to escape, because it's much more interesting dealing with reality because, there's some resistance there. And if there's no resistance, there's really no life. If there's no conflict, there is no life. It's just a fucking theme park ride. We realize and we accept that we were born at a horrible time in the history of Western civilization because it's flatlining. It's pretty close. Think about how relatively decent things looked in 2005. But now look, 10 years later, you know far more than you should about your fellow man. You realize that he does not deserve the freedom that he has been given. Look what he does with it. So just use that example to imagine how things will look another 10 years from now. So I'm just about out of steam. As always, you can send me your emails, commonfilth@commonfilth.com. Go to Bandcamp, the Bandcamp link below if you'd like to support the show and buy Common Filth Radio, the best of 2014, $2 or more. Click on the Amazon affiliate link below. If you live in America and you got shit to buy on Amazon, that'll be cool. And so yeah, that's how you can support, as you heard earlier in the show. But I got another episode of Tumblristas, number 5, coming out on Thursday, like it does every Thursday in this show, every Tuesday. So God willing, I will see you guys next week on this show. But until then, take care.